rapidly in orbit.
Welcome to What It Means to Be Human. I'm your host, Dan Zetterstrom. In each episode, I explore profound questions and thought-provoking ideas with the leading voices from around the world and my wonderful co-host, Roz. Roz, how are you today?
Hey, Dan, I'm good. I'm full from, Canadian Thanksgiving. It was just this past weekend. I know I'm dating the pod a little bit, but yeah, I had a wonderful weekend, and I'm ready to talk. I'm ready to do the signal. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm excited for the upcoming Halloween weekend where obviously, I've been in the UK where we kind of do a crappy imitation of how Halloween looks in Hocus Pocus. But now I actually get to, be in the midst of Halloween like that. So I'm really excited. Yeah, we're heading to Busch Gardens with Elizondo and his family and then doing a big haunted house. So it's going to be a lot of fun, I think.
That's amazing. Are you doing a haunted house? Like, are you actually building a haunted house? Like, are you putting it all together, or are you just like visiting?
Oh, no. We're visiting one. Yeah. Okay. So I assume we're going to be mock attacked by people with chainsaws and stuff. I don't know. I don't know how it works, but I know you guys really go for it over here. And yeah, I say you guys, you're Canadian, you're not American, but
Kind of the same in some ways.
Well, it sounds like you both have a regretful Thanksgiving holiday within, that undertone. So
that's right.
Similar in some ways.
Yes, in some ways. Yeah. That's awesome. Oh, that's going to be a blast. I'm excited for you to have your first, North American Halloween. Why don't we just say that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. I just wanted to say to everybody, thank you for listening to the show. We have officially passed 10,000 views. Woo! Which is incredible, in only a few weeks. So thank you. Thank you. You're all too kind. And yeah, just really, really cool that people are resonating with this and loving it. How is your journey as co-host going, Roz?
I mean, it's a blast. What can I say? This was unexpected for me, right? Because when we met, Dan, and we started talking, it was going to be, this was like your interview show. So the structure, the format of the show has changed since we started chatting, right?
Yep.
But I'm loving it. I've had people reach out to me. I've had so many amazing messages coming in, like over Instagram and, email,
so cool.
and people contacting and saying how much they are loving the vibe and the slightly more fun tone, the more compassionate tone. There seems to be a real connection to that. So it's been really cool. I'm surprised. I don't know. It's yeah, it's better than I ever could have imagined. Let's put it that way. Yes.
That's lovely.
Yes.
I won't lie. I was a little bit rude at the beginning because I know the UFO community does not take kindly to newcomers and to women. So I think you're rocking it. If you're getting nice messages, thank you to our lovely audience. And we're attracting the good eggs, it seems like. And talking of compassion, we actually had an amazingly timed interview this week with Maya Cowan, who is a PhD candidate for anthropology and cultural studies. And that was an incredible conversation, but that happened to kind of fall around Indigenous Peoples Day as well. So happy Indigenous Peoples Day to any listeners out there who like to look back and, just celebrate the diversity in the world. And yeah, I thought it was really cool that we kind of captured that moment with Maya coming out this week, and total synchronicity, not planned at all, right?
Yeah. And the feedback on her shorts and everything as well, right? Like her one short hit 1,000 views within 2 days. I was so blown away. I think people are really interested in the whole Indigenous take on UFO and UAP. And
yeah, for sure.
That just seems to be playing out with the content going up. So that's exciting to see. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And so people know, we're not going to let go of that thread. Maya kind of whet my appetite a bit. So now we're looking for guests that we can interview that can go a bit more intensely into those things. So look for that in the future. We also had our first episode of Contact go up today. It is October 14th today, Tuesday. And I went first because, I can't ask people to come on and bare their souls if I'm not willing to do it. So I went first and you edited the crap out of it and it sounds great. And yeah, it's just really nice. So if people enjoy that, they can also hop over to Hey That's Weird podcast, where, again, coincidentally, just went up this week. where I kind of go over some of my experiences from the rest of my life as well, because it's not just confined to that leaf on the wind kind of encounter. I, may have kind of put little clues throughout that there's been weirdness following me. So if you're interested and you like that, check out Hey, That's Weird as well. The episode is audio only. And we decided that because we didn't want, people that aren't used to coming on video and stuff like that, having to deal with the anxiety of suddenly doing that. So we thought, okay, well, we'll do it audio only. Then there's a little bit of, not necessarily anonymity because people give their names, but just a bit of comfort for people to tell those stories well and not worry about the listeners.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's fun too for people to listen, like Dan, your story. You go on such a journey with people when they're telling their stories about things that they've experienced that it's almost more fun to not have visuals, to allow people to hear it as an audio version only and kind of draw the pictures in their mind is really fun, I think. And that's what I really love about your episode and about Contact, as a style for the show, is that it really is this imaginative place where people can share and you can listen in and hear the stories and kind of allow them to, expand in your mind. It's really cool.
Yeah, absolutely. Can we expect to see you on there one day sharing anything weird, Roz?
I have some weird stories. I do. I have a few, but they're not UAP related, but they're more
fine.
Kind of psychic related a little bit. And yeah, I do have a few, so maybe. Yes, but you have to interview me, Dan.
Oh, absolutely. Well,
Yes.
Have a think about it. If you feel up for that, then
Okay.
that'd be great. The next episode, we're going to be interviewing Vinny Adams from Disclosure Team about what we saw in Colombia. Vinny was a closer witness than I was to it, so you'll probably get, a bit more back and forth than the episode that we just had because both of us were there. But it's going to be Vinny's story about what he saw and what he thinks of it in hindsight now. I think that would be really cool. And the nice thing with that one is that we did actually capture the video of what he saw. So we can share that, on our socials and stuff as that goes up.
That's exciting. Patreon,
yeah. And get it there. So I was going to do this at the end, but actually let's talk about it now since you mentioned it. Patreon, we have a Patreon, people can go sign up. We've got a few great people there already. That links to our Discord, so you can chat in that kind of community that's just starting out and growing now. As well as that, we're putting exclusive stuff up over there. At the moment, there's a Greer interview you may not have seen, where I interviewed Stephen Greer with Kurt Jaimungal from Theories of Everything. That video is no longer online. You can listen to the audio one, but the video isn't online, so you can watch the video on our Patreon. We've also got some incredible interviews coming up that I didn't do, but Roz did, so I'll let her tell you about those.
Yeah, well, these are from the vault. So these are interviews that I did in Brantford during the UFO Expo. And one of them is Stanton Friedman, which is really exciting. And, it's every time I hear Stanton, I feel a little sad because, of course, he's no longer with us and he was such a bright light in the community. But I'm so glad that I was able to capture that interview with him and get his thoughts. And it's really interesting to hear it now, too, because that piece was done in 2016. So It's really interesting to hear him talk from that perspective, because that was prior to the New York Times article coming out. So it was prior to this explosion of, of the UFO community, right? So it's cool to hear him speak on it. And then, of course, we also have Travis Walton's interview too, which
you look so young in the interview.
I know, but it's really good and it's super moody. Right? Yeah. You were saying, Dan, that I actually got him to smile in the interview, which I didn't.
I've not really seen him smile at times. And I understand that, that's not criticism. He went through something insane. I wouldn't be surprised if that weighs on him every second of the day for the rest of his life. But you got him to smile. And I thought that was really quite wonderful.
I didn't even know that was a thing, but I enjoyed it. I mean, I think he knew that we were fans, so it was a warm and cozy place for him, I'm sure. So he was felt comfortable, I guess. But yeah, so those are up on the Patreon, or they're going up, or they will be up. Yes.
Yeah, we'll kind of spread them out so that, it's not dumped on people all at the same time. And yeah, we got some plans for some cool stuff over there as well. So yeah, feel free, go sign up for the Patreon if you want to support the show and see all of these little cool things. We won't be putting them on YouTube or on audio anytime soon, if at all. So yeah, if you want to see them, go sign up there, and we'll thank you for it. Okay, with the introductions out the way and a little preamble, I guess it's time for UFO or UFno, and you are taking the reins this week.
Whoop, whoop. Here we go. Okay, so today we have a video from my hometown, I'm going to call it, of Toronto, Canada. And this was a video that showed up on, I believe, TikTok, but also was on Reddit, and I noticed it in a few places.
I'm so terminally online with UFO stuff that I'm genuinely thinking like, well, I've seen this one. Have I seen this one?
You probably have. You probably have. Okay, so I had to pull it off of TikTok, although I did get another one as well from Reddit. But the main one we're going to look at here is from TikTok. So,
okay,
are you ready? This is September the 20th, 2025. Here we go. I'm going to turn the audio down. So we're looking at the sky over the city of Toronto. It's a city skyline. It's blue sky, a little bit of cloud, and there's an object moving through the sky in this weird way past the CN Tower, almost like a fish. Like it's got this undulation kind of a quality to it, where it's moving forward through the sky, but it's undulating. It looks like it's swimming through the air, which is really bizarre.
I can see, initially I thought like, oh, you know, I can see, it almost looked like a plane kind of tilting its wings. But the movement isn't what you know, if a plane tilts its wings, it turns, right? Like that's what happens. So this isn't. This is going forward and kind of, it just looks like it's playing on water or in water. Like I totally understand what you mean.
Yeah.
If you describe as swimming through the sky.
Yeah, and it went right behind the CN Tower, like right behind the spire of the CN Tower. I'm not sure how tall the CN Tower is, but definitely the tallest tower in Canada. Oh, and there's a helicopter going by. Do you see that? There's a helicopter going underneath it there or something. There's a second object that goes underneath it while the object keeps kind of flying. And it's really odd. It just continues to move through the sky until it eventually disappears behind the wall of the building that the person's obviously filming from. They must be filming from a condo tower, because that looks like a condo tower wall to me. That it just went behind. So yeah, I mean, what's your take, Dan? What's your take?
The CN Tower is 553 meters tall.
Okay.
Just so you know.
Okay.
So, I mean, it's up there. And it was nice to see it go behind the tower because, you know, oftentimes something can be closer and smaller.
Yes.
So seeing that it goes behind the tower is like, okay, so that's far away and bigger. We know that. You know that. That's the nice thing. There's a little bit of an image drag on it, as in like the object kind of looks almost like there's a comet's tail coming off it. But I think that's probably an artifact of the videoing. You know, a very dark object against the light sky, it almost looks like it's dragging. So I don't think that's like propulsion or anything like that. I can see the glinting as well on it as it's tilting. So there's some material on it that is reflecting the sun. And you can see it glinting even there as you're playing it. And the wobble... Oh, and it's going up as well. So it's going up, 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 up. So I immediately, I'm going to say what the skeptics would think.
Yes.
And that I can see why someone would describe this as likely a balloon. But for me, there's too much forward motion here.
Right.
For it to necessarily be a balloon. You know, it's not really bobbing in the same way. And it's going like back on itself and down a little bit here as well. So like,
yeah.
In certain moments, it kind of resembles what a balloon would be looking like, but in other moments, it doesn't at all. So yeah,
it has like a weird, almost like an alive quality to it, like
very Stingray-esque.
Yeah, right. When you watch it, which is, I guess, why maybe some people might say balloon, but it does appear to like move upward and downward, and it's definitely on its own trajectory, like you said, moving forward. So this is the scaled up version. Somebody's obviously taken it into some kind of editing program. Actually, I think it's the person who shot it that scaled it up. What I read online on Reddit. Okay. Here it is.
So we can see that they're really far away. Like this video is longer, right? So they're kind of outside of the city looking into above the city.
Yes. It looks like there's something definitely like heat coming off the back of it or something, right? Like you said, or if it's an artifact, there it goes behind the tower. It's glinting on the front. It almost looks like a UFO in distress.
Yeah. You know, they've hit the red button and they're going to go out down and are trying to avoid the city. So crash in the sticks type thing.
Yeah.
But it's going up.
Yes.
So, and I always think about that as well, like relatively, you know, we think of the ground as our safe space. Like a fish would go beneath the ground into the water, you know, and we have all these like humanity exists on this very small sliver, and we think of down as, you know, the native place that we should be. But there's nothing to say that for another species that couldn't be upside down, and that I'm saying, look, it's going up, and actually, no, it's going down to space, to it.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's a great point. I never thought about that. That's so true. So it's just, I mean, there's the helicopter, right? That's a helicopter, isn't it? Yeah, going by underneath it.
So you can kind of see the trail on the helicopter as well, right, which makes me think that the tail is just an artifact of the filming.
Right. Okay, so it's not actually heat coming off of it or something like that.
Yeah. And there's also like around this object, you can almost see like a lighter area, but that's also true of the buildings and stuff, the edges.
Right. And there it goes.
That's the kind of thing that, you know, a UFO person would be like, it's in a bubble, you know, it's an anti-gravity bubble or whatnot. And it's like, no, that's, you know, you can see it around other buildings and other objects in this video.
Yes.
But the object itself is really strange.
Right. Any guesses, Dan? I mean, I went out on a limb last time.
I mean, I don't know what it is. The closest I've gotten is maybe balloon, but I don't think it is a balloon because there's just behaviors there that they're not congruent with how a balloon behaves. So I guess I've got to say I don't know, in which case it is an unidentified flying object. So I've got to go UFO with this one.
A UFO, Dan says. Well, I guess we have to wait till the end of the show to find out.
Yeah. Okay, so let's jump into our news stories this week, I guess. So we're going to be talking about the wonderful Jane Goodall, who just passed, and her work and why it's relevant for, you know, what we talk about. Drones over Denmark. Dylan Borland expanded on his testimony via Weaponized. We also had a witness who didn't testify at the hearings, but almost did, go on Weaponized and kind of share his story, an update on the UAPDA, and then we're finally going to get to Roz's book club. We also have a few interview questions as well as we kind of talk through this. So we'll get to those as we do, but thank you for sending those in. Really appreciate it. So Roz, what did you know about Jane Goodall?
Actually, you know, I'm a little bit embarrassed to say I don't know a ton about her other than, you know, obviously her work with chimps, right? And the work that she was famous for. You know, I was just so sad to hear that she passed away this week. But I mean, my goodness, wasn't she in her 90s? I think she was in her 90s. She was
91, yeah. She passed at 91. And she was such a firecracker. There was an interview that she released after her death that she filmed before her death, where she just went to town on Elon Musk and how we're destroying the planet and things like that. And I thought that was so great. She has a really good sense of humor as well. There's a great interview out there with her where she's on a show with the Insane Clown Posse.
What?
And she gives as good as she gets. And by the end of the show, they don't know if she's joking or if she's being serious. And she's just having a great laugh. So I highly recommend people search that one out if they want to see just how fun she was. But yeah, you're right. She was a British primatologist, ethologist, and conservationist, best known for her groundbreaking research on the wild chimpanzees in the Gombe Stream National Park, Tanzania. She started her fieldwork in like 1960 and didn't have any formal training, but she pretty much revolutionized the way that we interact with animals and the way that we think about them, especially our closest relatives. So I wanted to talk about her on this because I think it's highly relevant to, you know, first contact and appreciating the species around us and actually identifying intelligence in the animal community, which we do a lot more these days because of Jane Goodall, I think.
Absolutely. Yeah, she was, well, I mean, you see the videos of her with the chimps that she was working with. And there's that one that I saw just recently online where, they're rehoming one of them, obviously, and opening up his cage out in the wild so that he can return. And he jumps up on top and gives her a hug. And oh my gosh, like the most beautiful scene.
That was the first time that chimp had ever met her.
What?
Yes.
No.
And it didn't hug anyone else. Like it just, game recognizes game. Like it saw that she was kind to its kind and took the time to be compassionate and understanding. And that's how it responded to her. Like how is that not? I remember watching that video and just being like, is this not like a little miracle? And like you kind of get them with people around the world. I remember seeing one where these two guys brought up a tiger and they had to release it back into the jungles. And then they went back like 10 years later and the tiger came and it was so happy to see them. And it was enormous. It could have eaten them in a second if it wanted to. But then it ran off and came out the jungle again and it had its whole family with it and it was introducing them to the family. And I was just like, this is an intelligent species.
Wow. That is wild. That's the first time. It's so interesting because I really do believe that, anybody who has a dog, that's another thing I love about Jane Goodall is she was quoted many times as saying her favorite animal was actually a dog, not a chimp. Which I thought was so sweet. But, you can feel the energy with your dog, right? When you're, talking to them or playing with them or trying to get them to calm down or whatever it is, it's the energy that you give off. You can tell that they pick it up and that they emulate your energy, right? Like we have a border Aussie. He's half border collie, half Aussie, Australian Shepherd. And whenever there's a lot of activity in the house and Dale, my husband, and I are talking or we're animated or we're, there's people over and we're having a get together, he's amped. Like he just feeds off the energy. So that to me just says that she must have had the most beautiful energy, so calming, right? Because aren't chimps supposed to be really violent? I thought chimpanzees
they can be.
Yeah.
They could have just, if they wanted, I mean, they're really strong, right? So they could just pull your arms off if they wanted to and not really realize what they've done. So the fact that the chimps were, upon first meeting of her, going for hugs and empathy is really touching and beautiful.
I love that. Yeah, I was thinking about her and watching, of course, when she passed away, there was so much content churning up on the internet about her. And, Dan, that I teach yoga and meditation, right? It's like my side hustle that I do that I love. But she really reminds me of what the Buddhists would call a bodhisattva. Like she's not Buddhist, right? Obviously.
Can you explain that a little bit for people that aren't familiar? But yeah, I think so too. Yeah.
So bodhisattvas are just, they're incredibly compassionate beings that decide to, instead of, reaching enlightenment in this life, they decide to stay and help people, what the Buddhists would say, like cross the river. So they help people get to the other side. They help people find enlightenment is the idea, bodhisattvas, right? And they delay their own enlightenment so that they can help others achieve that is the idea.
Would the Dalai Lama apply in that kind of, because I know, from what I've read of the Dalai Lama, he refuses to go on. He's coming back to help us. So would he kind of be in that zone as well?
Maybe. I know that the Dalai Lama and I don't want to butcher this, but I believe that the Dalai Lama really ascribes to, I believe the name is Avalokiteshvara, which is the Bodhisattva of compassion. So I believe the Dalai Lama believes that he is either the incarnation of that or that he is here to spread that compassion, compassionate awareness, loving kindness, But yeah, when I saw her in those videos, I was like, Jane Goodall was a bodhisattva,
Absolutely.
I know she's not Buddhist, but she was here to help all of us, understand ourselves better and find our own compassion, our compassion for other animals and other species. And, that was what she gave us. So she gifted us, right, as humans. Just beautiful. Beautiful lady.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So her work completely redefined humanity's relationship with animals. She was the first to observe chimpanzees using tools, hunting, showing emotion, forming complex social structures, and it just blurred the line between humans and other species. She also pioneered kind of like I guess we'd call it empathetic observation, where she actually like named the chimpanzees and documented their personalities and relationships, which was a first. Again, to go back to dogs, like everyone with a dog who's listening will know that their dog has a personality, and we've given it a name. And she was the first one to do this with wild animals, and it was kind of controversial, but it completely reshaped how we study animals at all and approach them. And as well as that, icing on the cake here, I guess, is that she expanded kind of conservation awareness. And she did it in a time where we weren't talking about climate change and we weren't like this massively connected by the internet and phones and things like that, global web. She actually kind of managed to get this message out there and make people actually like go and appreciate these things. I imagine that you take her work away and stuff like National Geographic looks very different, like just as a channel, as a space. She shifted from research to global advocacy over conservation and founded the Jane Goodall Institute and Roots and Shoots Youth Program, which promoted conservation, animal welfare, and environmental stewardship, which I think is beautiful. When I think about our role on the planet, at the moment we're kind of taking resources and I think we kind of need to go more towards like gardening. We're looking after a garden and we have to help the flowers bloom and help all the bees kind of flourish and the butterflies and, everything else there. And I think Jane kind of pushed that. Her work just totally transformed primatology into a field grounded with empathy and respect, which is weird to say of a science, right? Like empathy is required for this science, but it is, empathy actually managed to help us get some deeper truths about chimpanzees and social structures and reflect on what it means to be human from that. If you're listening, take a drink. I said the name of the show. She helped, just spark the modern animal rights and environmental movements, inspired generations of humans to see that they're part of, not apart from, but part of the natural world. We are of this world. The world produced us. Her message just emphasizes hope, coexistence, the power of individual action in protecting the planet. But why I wanted to kind of talk about her was, beyond this beautiful spirit that she clearly was because when I think of First Contact and ambassadors, who I would send, she would be like at the top of my list. Essentially, like her approach, like based on what she did, I think her approach, she would probably watch and not speak, just observe, the visitors, the non-human intelligence, just like she did with the chimpanzees, looking at their communications, social cues. She let them show her who they were rather than kind of imposing this in-the-box thinking that we tend to do in this subject. I think there'll be gentleness, not dominance. Like this is what worries me about the US government and the military kind of coming into the UFO thing. It's about, their language is threat language. Like Ben and Jerry's language is ice cream language, right? Like that's just what they do. But it means that we're going to approach this subject of first contact talking about it through fear and dominance as opposed to gentleness and empathy and respect. Jane wouldn't force contact. She never assumed superiority. I think, by and large, humanity would have issues kind of shutting those things down. During first contact, we'd assume we were superior. Some of us might be humbled by it, but many of us would not. Like we think of us at the top of the food chain. I can just imagine like lots of like really small, not threatening gestures of curiosity and goodwill. Probably look for a shared experience. Instead of focusing on how different they are, she'd search for common ground, look for curiosity, care, play, cooperation, kind of universal signals of intelligence and emotion she recognized in animals, similar to like when we watch dolphins playing. And, when I was off the coast of Mexico watching them just do flips in the water, and I was like, there's no function to this. Like they're not doing flips to like catch fish or anything like that. They're just having fun. And it's wild to see them just in the natural environment being like, yeah, no one's around. I'm just going to have some fun. Do a flip, very, I was going to say very human-like behavior, but I think that needs to shift. And we need to start thinking of, say, for example, whales. People are going to hear about whales in the next interview we do with Dr. Michelle Fournet. and there'll be some human-like behaviors in whales, but whales were here long before us. So technically, we are exhibiting whale-like behavior when we are empathetic. I think that's fair to say, right? They were here first.
Yeah, as far as we know.
As far as we know. And then, if you're out there and you're human and you like shiny things, you collect shiny things, you're exhibiting crow-like behavior. Crows aren't exhibiting human-like behavior when they collect trinkets and decorate their nests. We're being like crows. That's just the way we've got to think of it. I think most of all, though, she'd remind humanity to listen. The kind of philosophy that she had of interconnection, that humans are part of a vast web of life, would probably guide her to treat alien life as, friend in the cosmic sense, not subjects to be studied or threats like the military would approach them. And ultimately, I just think she would walk forward with hope, not, as I said, dominance. It would be to learn and to grow in our understanding of life itself. And that kind of includes us. And in a way, like she already modeled that with the chimpanzees, right? Whether it's chimpanzees, a culture, or, a being from another world, like she approached with wonder and not fear. And I think that is a framework we all really need to take to heart when approaching this subject.
Totally. And I think too, she really embodied what I would consider like indigenous philosophies in a lot of ways, right? So,
yes.
Indigenous culture really believes in respect, and, respect is really important, right? Respecting your natural environment, respecting the other creatures that are on the planet that you share the planet with, respecting the earth, right? Respecting our natural environment. So, when I think of her, I just think, oh, she embodied so many of those virtues and those values. And, a lot of indigenous people believe that, yes, we are all interconnected, and we are, like you said, Dan, we are of the earth, right? We are of it, right? We come out of it. And so recognizing that interconnectedness that we have, with the earth, with the animals, with the natural environment, with each other, just generally leads to more compassion. Right? It leads us to be more compassionate as humans. So she really embodied that, right? She embodied that respect. She embodied that interconnectedness. She, and that just shone through in her work, and then it shone through in how the other creatures responded to her, right?
Yeah, like absolutely
beautiful.
Well, what an incredible legacy to leave behind. I'm getting a little choked up.
I know. I know.
Let's spin into our very, very first audience question.
Oh, like
which I thought was perfect to put by here. This is from Dawn. Thank you so much for sending it in, Dawn. And I put it here instead of like at the end of the show because it's relevant to what we're talking about. But who would you pick as first contact ambassador? Which Bodhisattva out there would you think like this is who I'd put forward? And if you're listening, like let us know who you'd send in as well. I'm so some people will be like, yeah, Messi. I wouldn't send Messi. He's good at kicking balls. That doesn't feel like a good skill to have in first contact. But who would I send?
I was going to say the Dalai Lama for sure.
Oh, nice.
For sure. Right? Just obvious choice.
Yeah.
That's the obvious
I like that one.
Dan. Yeah.
I'm going to go with David Attenborough.
Oh.
Because I feel like he embodies, a big chunk of what Jane Goodall did. Or does. And, there would be gentleness, there would be hope, the way that he would communicate that to the rest of the world if he got a chance to like make an hour feature on like, who are the aliens? I think that would be really touching, as opposed to just giving Netflix the money to do it, and it just follows their true crime kind of format that they spew things out in.
Oh my gosh, can you imagine a David Attenborough documentary about aliens? That'd be the best thing ever.
God.
Oh no, that's
so good.
If that hasn't been done on with AI yet, we just put that out there.
Yeah, I'd love to see that. Okay, so we're going to go into the skies now and talk about the drones over Denmark. Copenhagen Airport, loads of airports out that way are reporting these mysterious drones. Members of the public are spotting them. The armies, the militaries there are kind of saying that they've spotted them too. And it's kind of become just a very noisy story in the community. So I wanted to touch on it and just ask you, what are your thoughts?
It's crazy. I mean, I try to keep up as much as I can in terms of what's happening, but I can't help but be reminded of the whole New Jersey drone situation and how it felt like there was like little to no resolution of that beyond Trump saying, "Oh no, it wasn't." Didn't he say it was the FAA and it was all allowed? And actually, it was just something that they had, been doing. It was so confusing, that whole thing. So with this, I'm just like, well, maybe that's happening again. Like I read that Germany maybe was launching drones into Denmark. Maybe there's a ship off the coast. Then I read there is a ship off the coast that they spotted that's launching. So I'm just like, I don't know what to believe. This is the point with these types of stories where I tend to tune out. Because I'm like,
that's totally fair.
I don't know what to believe.
And I think most people will, right? Like I think a lot of people will be reading this. You've got two different camps kind of reading this. You got the ones reading it kind of going, this is a UFO wave and it's all anomalous and we can't get pictures of them and the drones are in the sky for so long that longer than, commercial drones or drones that we know of can be in the sky for, and so the UFOs. But then the other way is that it's all misidentification and kind of, everyone is what's the word, like hysteria. Everyone's feeding each other's hysteria. And for me, I think the truth kind of probably lands between the two, as it usually does, I guess. Just like in New Jersey, we've had a whole bunch of kind of videos and photos and stuff from officials, from people online, saying like, this is definitely a drone. And some of them have turned out to be planes. One was a star. And one of them might turn out to be a drone video, but I've still not seen an actual video of these mysterious drones to shut down the airport. I think what's important to understand is that when someone reports a drone at an airport, it just gets shut down. On the off chance that the drone is there, they don't necessarily have to confirm that something is there to shut the airport down. It's a safety thing, so they just shut it all down. I was reading as well that they didn't have any effective countermeasures. And again, this is a split thing. It's a choose your own story type thing, because the UFO community sees that and kind of just says, well, no effective countermeasures means they're resistant to our technology and therefore they must be anomalous. However, when you kind of read into it, you find out that the countermeasures they had, even for tracking drones in the airport, was literally a crappy one that they went on Alibaba.com and bought. And it's a DJI kind of radar system. So it will pick up DJI drones and nothing else.
Oh.
So when you're reading phrases like, oh, no effective countermeasures, it sounds a lot more like, whoa, how can they not bring these things down than it actually is. And I think the kind of the paranoia around Russia, using drone warfare and kind of creeping into Europe is leading to these places of high, value targets to kind of go, oh crap, we really need to upgrade our systems. And moments like this will mean that the airport funders and the governments will actually sign off on upgrading those systems to kind of protect these assets. So in one way, I think it almost doesn't matter if it's just Russia. It's still relevant to the conversation we're having because it's just stuff outside the usual, objects that should be there in the sky around an airport. But then again, I think we need to understand that countermeasures not working can mean many different things. Mm-hmm. And so it's not just like, oh yeah, they've got the state-of-the-art stuff. In the US, they have the state-of-the-art stuff that can bring down their state-of-the-art drones. And that's it. Anything outside of the US that isn't made by the US probably can't be tracked or brought down. I think a lot of these defense companies like to say, oh, we can track a ball in space. Like, yeah, you can, but are you? Like, are you actually doing that? Are you actually covering your bases with a complete, radar view of what's kind of going on around them? And I don't think they are. There might be one or two satellites up there that can track these tiny ice particles on the other side of the planet. But by and large, most can't do that. So it's a resource people are going to be fighting over. Mm-hmm. So I think we just have to remember those things.
Yeah, for me, like I've worked with so many drones because just being in production, I've worked with drones for years, everything from small DJIs to like quadcopters, octocopters,
and they get big in production as well, right?
Yeah, you can get really large drones. And then we also did a series for Transport Canada a number of years ago on drone technology that was being developed in Canada, and went to some of the higher end labs at universities to look at the drones that they were developing. And,
That's cool.
So it was really cool. And for me, I look at this and I go like, how do we not, like, how can we not get a photo of them, first of all? Like, why are there no pictures available? And then secondly, like, if they're loud and they're making a lot of noise, which in the New Jersey case, they were saying that some of them sounded like lawnmowers going by. It's like, well, okay, obviously that's man-made, I would think.
Sure.
I mean, up until now, every time we hear about UAP technology, it's silent, and that's the really crazy thing.
Or it's like you know how people put speakers on their cars in the engines to make like the engine sound,
right? Yeah,
maybe it's like
right?
that. Maybe there's just a speaker on it making it sound like a lawnmower, so the true like propulsion can't be figured out.
Right. Yeah, exactly. That's right. It's all a ruse, right? Some kind of ruse. But I don't understand like how we're not able to get photos, or they're not, the authorities in those countries aren't able to say, oh yeah, that's like, how can we not just look at it and know? I know it's dark, but like, don't we have night vision? Like, why are we not able to, do you know what I mean?
They didn't have night vision. Like the system did not, they did not have a system where they could zoom in from far away on something in night vision.
Right.
So all they were using is their like bog standard security cameras and this crappy radar thing they bought off Alibaba.com.
Right. The DJI.
And so, but I'm with you. Like, why don't they have better equipment? Like, if anything, that makes me worry more. Like, do they subject me when I go through security at the airport to more security than the airspace around the airport? Like, what's going on?
Seems to be the case.
Weird, right? Like, sort it out. But that's the thing. I'm like, this is easy to figure out if it is drones. So just figure it out. Like, just get it done.
Yeah.
And stuff like this has been going on since 2023. Like, it happened in Langley, various US bases. It's happened in Germany, happened in the UK a few years back. And it's just infuriating because it's like, if it is drones, then the bar is really low to figure this out, and there are countermeasures you can put in place. So let's get to it,
Yeah, totally. Also, the bar is really low for any kind of repercussions on people who are flying drones over airports, right? Because shouldn't you be afraid? Like when we're out there flying drones, the DJI drones that we work with most generally, they tell you if you're within proximity to an airport, and most of the time they won't fly. Like,
that's right.
And we're always aware of like how close are we to an airport, and making sure that we're not going to get into any trouble for launching this, where we are. So I just don't understand like how, if these are civilian or something, that these people are just getting away with flying them over the airport. Like, it makes zero sense to me. Like, all of it makes no sense to me, which is, I think, why I tend to just go, okay, I'm going to ignore this for a while. 'Cause, you know what I mean?
No, I'm totally with
happening.
you.
Yeah.
I haven't waded into this debate online. This is like the first time I'm talking about it and thinking about it deeply. And like, if I, gun to my head, if I had to explain this to someone and they were like, what's going on? I'd be like, okay, someone like Russia or China has figured out that they can control a drone without an operator from like, countries away, continents away. And so they can't be traced back, and they can just bother people. They can bother the base. They can, make the base react, and they can see how the base reacts to drone warfare, whether they have any reactions at all. And in some places they do. And in other places, like, this Denmark airport, they did not. They had nothing. So I think they're like intelligence finding missions from just a foreign adversary. But there's all this other stuff kind of coming into it to make it really noisy. Like the Dutch government said the other day that not everything that they filmed was drones. And so again, choose your own adventure from that statement. People in the UFO community, oh, that means it must be anomalous. And you got Mick West and the debunkers saying, well, yeah, because some of them were planes and stars and stuff, so not everything is drones. It makes complete sense.
It's crazy making. It's crazy making.
It just drives you nuts. You almost need like a ufologist present at the press briefing to go, wait, can you just, I need to drill in on that a second. Like, do you mean they're anomalous? And if they didn't, then they would just say so, right?
Yeah, and it's like, can somebody with a night vision camera just go out and stake out these airports? There. Just like go and film some stuff and try to get at least a sense of what the shape of the object is, because there's just nothing from the videos that I've seen. You can't tell. It's literally just flashing lights in the sky. Could be anything, right?
Like you said, your production. So you know what kit's out there. You know that you can buy a camera that can zoom like 100 miles away and it be pin sharp and good at night, good quality at night. So it's like, what are we doing? Like, let's get on with this.
Bananas.
Yeah. Okay, well.
I was going to say, somebody needs to go to jail. Somebody needs to go to jail, Dan, for irritating me. For irritating me.
For irritating you. That's the charge.
Irritating me with the story, right?
10 years for irritating Roz with the drone story. Don't worry about encroaching on airspace. It's purely because of the annoyance.
That's right.
It's a civil suit, this one.
That's right.
Okay, well, talking of, airports needing to become a bit more weaponized and defensive, I guess we should jump into Dylan Borland on Weaponized with Jeremy Corbell and George Knapp. Dylan Borland, if you've been following this, he testified at the hearing. He was kind of like the star witness at the hearing. We hadn't heard from him before, and he had a lot of really impactful things to say. But he didn't kind of get to open up on everything. A lot of the answers were, I can talk about that in a skiff and things. And so Jeremy and George, before he went to Congress, filmed an interview with him. Apparently filmed it several times. But these two parts of the interviews they released are those interviews, just in case, he didn't get to say what he wanted in Congress. So I figured we'd just kind of go through them and hit the main points that people would be interested in. I'm going to resist getting to it quickly, but he does give an idea of what he thinks the phenomena is. Which I was like, I gotta write this down verbatim. This is the good stuff. This is what people want to know. But also, just a few things to run through before I get to that. I'll save the best for last, I promise. So it was a lot more fleshed out than the hearing testimony. He revealed that basically testifying to the Senate about everything that was going on meant that all of the stuff that he said immediately got classified. So he's actually restricted in what he's allowed to say, even more than he was before he went to the Inspector General to complain. He was deemed not urgent but credible with his testimony to the ICIG, which basically means the urgent bit is whether it's a threat to his life or not. They deemed that it wasn't, but they deemed him credible. So everything he has to share here and at the hearing, the watchdog of the whole military has kind of said, yeah, this is credible, which is really interesting. So he goes into basically all of his training where he had to understand and analyze imagery on different systems, kind of giving a good idea of, he would be the guy to kind of see this UFO stuff. He's in a good place. Explains that he went from the Air Force to a multi-agency special access program under BAE Systems, which is a British company, just like Lockheed, but from the UK. And he didn't trust the people that he worked for. He recounts the UFO story, so I won't go into that, just, about the kind of lava-covered triangle. And he, a few times throughout the show, he kind of speaks directly to the secret keepers and gets quite emotional when he's doing it. And one of those things he says, this is coming out no matter what. And when it does, if they're not a part of this, it'll be a lot worse for them than it already is. That's kind of exciting to me because it seems to suggest that, they've got a plan in place for this to just roll out, whether the US wants to do it officially or not, which is kind of what we've wanted for a while now, right? Like, just get it out. It's not all about the US. Mm-hmm. What's your position on that? Like, would you want catastrophic disclosure, as they call it? I was just going
to say catastrophic disclosure. I don't know. I mean, I feel like we're being pushed to this precipice where that's just what's going to happen. Because I feel like, the U.S. government is going to continue to sit on its secrets and its goodies, as George would say, until their hand is absolutely forced at the very last minute. So I'm starting to feel like we don't have a choice. It's going to be somebody who's going to come forward like a Dylan Borland and just be out with it. And, it's only going to take one person to do that, to come with hard evidence, photos, videos, things that they've taken. I mean, Christopher Mellon was the one who leaked the original Tic Tac videos to the press, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So it's only going to take one more person to come forward like that, I think, with real evidence. And there's your catastrophic disclosure, right?
Yeah, I think so. He says at one point just after this, he 100% knows from experience the craft of unknown origin or NHI exist. So, like you say, he's the guy that seems to have the goods where he can spill them if he wants to, He even alludes during the interview in his interview with Arrow, that it was like... sorry, not with Arrow, with the ICIG, that it was like they were on a fact-finding mission to find out exactly what he did know about this legacy program dealing with UFOs, and started taking him seriously when they realized what he knew. He wasn't someone that they could just put away as a kook and would go away. He was someone that actually had substance and something to show, and so they'd have to deal with him in ways, and this is where the repercussions come in. He talks about his brake lines being cut and things like that, and it just gets really heavy. He says, I have direct first-hand knowledge and exposures to crash recovery, reverse engineering, integration of technology into, and then that bit's redacted, as well as the most important technology on the planet, and it's not the craft themselves. To which Corbell replies, that would be the power source. And Dylan says, you could, make that guess. And Jeremy just goes, I just did. Which, things like that always suggest to me that they've had a conversation off camera. Mm-hmm. And Dylan said, I can't say it's the power source. And Jeremy's just gone, don't worry, I'll say it.
Yeah, for sure. And that they're doing that, right? Like they're getting, because these people are whistleblowers, and they've likely come to George and Jeremy much earlier on to share what they know in privacy, right? Like in private, off the record, I guess is the word I'm looking for. So all of this information, everybody knows a lot more than what they're able to say, and it's just going to take that one bit of actual evidence. And it's kind of getting to that point for me too, where I'm like, is someone just going to show us something? The stories are mind blowing. Like Dylan talking to, George and Jeremy and sharing all the information, but it's like, can you just show us a photo? Can you show us a picture? Can you, who was saying that? Like, if you get abducted, bring something back from the ship,
just
right?
Steal something. Just steal something. I can't remember who was it.
Yeah, is it Michio Kaku?
Michio Kaku. Yeah, I think Neil deGrasse Tyson has said it as well. Like, just take something.
Right.
Just anything.
Anything. That's kind of how I feel.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. If I get abducted, I'm going to pilfer something from this ship. And I'll cause a galactic incident by doing it, no doubt.
Yes. I know it's a lot easier to say that, because obviously these people, Dylan can't just show stuff because you go to jail, right? So obviously there's reasons that they can't, but yeah, it's a little frustrating, but.
Yeah, absolutely. It turns out he worked across Five Eyes as well. Five Eyes is a collaborative intelligence sharing effort between the US, Canada, the UK, New Zealand, and Australia. And it's come up before in the UAP stuff because there was a briefing given via Five Eyes by Sean Kirkpatrick at one point. And at least, from pinging the UK government on it, I know they didn't want to talk about it. But it happened. And so I find that a really curious piece of his testimony, that he was working in that Five Eyes intelligence apparatus. So I wonder if, people in all those countries, like say US, Canada, UK, New Zealand, Australia, need to get onto their governments and start asking about these things, because it seems like, there's some intelligence sharing going on. There was also, Dylan was recounting basically that his clearance kept getting deleted from what's called scattered castles. That's where they store the clearances. And it just kept disappearing, and it made him essentially stuck at this dead-end job where it was almost like he was administratively terrorized into not being a problem. And at this job, everyone else he talked to, he found that they'd been kind of put there for the same reasons as well. That they'd come across UAP stuff that they hadn't had the clearance maybe to know about, or, had kind of spooked the people running the program. which is interesting. George describes it as the island of lost toys. And, that sounds like the room I want to sit in and just hear people talk about what they found.
Yeah, no kidding.
Scattered Castles was actually as well I don't know if you know, Jack Valet does kind of a series of books that essentially it's just his diary. And so you can get loads of little tidbits in there about like different events happening and from different points of view. And the sixth one was called Scattered Castles, which I found really interesting because, Dylan said that clearances are stored in scattered castles. And Valet is very like wink, wink, nudge, nudge with everything that he does. So my eyebrow is raised. And wow. I'm now going to spend a little bit of time looking into that angle.
Well, and that whole story too about him and his clearances, it just reminded me of Bob Lazar, right?
Yes.
Like the stories that Bob Lazar tells about how all of a sudden his education is missing and all of a sudden he never worked there. And all of a sudden, like, it just seems like it's more of the same tactics, right? So when you hear these things over and over, I mean, you start to think there's obviously truth to it because it's happening to people over and over, right?
Yeah.
Not just a one-off. So it's crazy.
Yeah, absolutely. At one point he says, I hope not, but I suspect so, when he's asked if he thinks if he is part of some kind of modern day MKUltra type thing. MKUltra was, for those that don't know, a bunch of programs where the CIA was essentially experimenting with mind control on people. And a lot of this kind of remote viewing stuff kind of mixes in with that. And a startling number of people to come out of MKUltra turned out to, be like Ted Kaczynski and the Unabomber and, stuff like that. And they did something to people that just broke them mentally. And so for Dylan to bring that up, I thought was startling. To touch on Bob Lazar again, for me, Bob's story has changed over the years. It's not been consistent with what he's presenting. But when you look back and you look at his story, one side of the story is I saw a craft and I worked on a craft. The other side of the story is I was given a folder full of information and I was told to look through it and it had all this information about alien races and things like that in it. And I wonder if that folder was kind of leaning into this MKUltra-esque, it's just filled with misinformation and he's been screwed over. And the truth isn't that he saw sources, but the truth is that they experimented on him with, this kind of MKUltra-esque stuff and just really messed him up. And again, that truth is in the middle between the two lies. Did he see a UFO or didn't he see a UFO? Doesn't matter. Mm-hmm. He's been messed with by the government,
Reminds me of Mirage Man.
Yes.
Who was in Mirage Man? Who was the, I'm blanking on his name. The man who was responsible for messing with people's heads. And that one in particular.
You thinking of Richard Doty?
Yes.
There
Richard
you
Doty.
go. Yeah.
Yes. Richard Doty from that film, Mirage Man. I mean, that was his job, right? It was his job to go out and essentially get this local man to believe that he was seeing alien spacecraft, right? He was just like continuing to feed him with this information. I can't remember what happened at the end of that, if that poor man committed suicide, or I feel like it wasn't a good ending. Yeah.
It was Paul Benowitz, and basically Doty would lean into, he'd say like, hey, I'm an intelligence guy and I'm from the base and I want to tell you there are UFOs there and we're doing all these experiments and stuff. And Benowitz started to, regurgitate that in public. And he basically got to a point where he was completely, his reputation was in shatters, his mind was in shattered. And yeah, he eventually committed suicide. And for me, certainly, Richard Doty had a hand in that, to the point where Richard Doty approached me at a conference before to say hi, and I just turned around and walked off. I had no interest in shaking that guy's hand. I don't know why Richard Doty is invited to talk at conferences or invited on shows for interviews and things like that. I think he has reliably shown that he will lie if he can lie, and he was paid to lie. He's a good liar. I don't want to listen to him anymore, But yeah, that's exactly it. You're right. That's kind of the ballpark that we're in there. Dylan points out that there are 100% intelligence operatives on X or on Twitter in the community, kind of seeding these talking points that he sees on private classified servers, anti-UAP talking points, And they'll show up verbatim on X. So he was like, so I know that they're trying to poison the well type thing. He mentions a 2-word program. He doesn't say what the 2 words are. It's not Immaculate Constellation because that's said not long after he says it. So there's another program that Dylan knows the name of that is related to the Legacy program. A bit of a revelation that apparently when he went to the Senate and these kind of different Senate organizations like the, security panels and things like that, that they were actually concerned to bring him to the House side because they seem to not think it's secure, which is interesting because I'm just going to jump ahead and pull a bit of news in. The UAP Disclosure Act failed again this year, and it's not going anywhere, and it failed in the House. So there seems to be some activity in the House that does not want UAP talked about or, legislation signed. Everything to kind of push for disclosure seems to be coming from the Senate or from, this dog and pony show of this declassification task force that really hasn't declassified anything heavy or actually substantial since they started. Dylan goes into the fact there's no safety net for whistleblowers, that he's on the verge of losing his house and things like that. And that he's got to be so careful when he talks because the government has over 300,000 lawyers waiting for one small step out of line. And it can just be that he jaywalked and they will throw him in jail for the rest of his life. They're looking for a mistake. So they've got to be very careful. And it's in this bit of the interview that he says that there was actually phone interference that happened around George and Jeremy. And Jeremy says that's the first time I've seen that. So, witnesses to tamper him with communications lines. But now we're going to get to the bit that everyone is probably waiting for. And that is Dylan's idea of what the phenomena is. So I'm just going to read this verbatim, okay? He says that the phenomena dramatically changes humanity. Economics, travel, talking about mining comets, going to other planets, resource wars being fought become irrelevant. He goes on and says, I think what we are dealing with is very, very old. I think old humans have written those down in religious stories. I think it's quite clear we have been influenced by something else. These things, whatever they are probably what are referred to as gods or demons or angels or jinn or insert whatever religious or cultural perspective you have. They are probably also extraterrestrial. It's not one size fits all, but it's been here for a very long time. It goes by many names, it's many different things, and it has an influence on all of us. He then mentions that they've dug stuff up at archaeological digs, which we'll come back to in a sec. And then says, yeah, we're the ones who built the craft, but the thought came from somewhere else. And once you get into that, and he's kind of cut off about that point. So it's this idea of where does the thought come from to build the craft and being influenced in these really subtle ways by the phenomena. And he then says, I know they existed. We have them. Other nations have them. I know that in some way, shape, or form they appear in a physical sense. I know they have an interest in people, and I have a strong belief that they have an interest in people's families, if you want to call them that. Mm. Some very provocative things there, right? What do you make of that?
It's spooky. I just feel spooked out. I feel like the hairs on my arms are standing up. Yeah, it's really disturbing, right? I mean, I think this is a lot of the reason. It's the reason why people, when they hear about this stuff, they tend to, if you're not completely into the subject and you're not examining stuff, you just kind of look away because it's like, sure. I don't know. Again, it's kind of like the drone thing, right? It's like, I don't know what to make of this. And so can my brain even comprehend what I'm hearing, right? Because it's the type of statement that cracks open your paradigm completely. Yeah. Right? And forces you to start thinking about reality in a whole new way. I've pondered these questions lots and read lots of books and on the subject. And so none of it is particularly new to me. The idea that this is old and has been here for a long time and is likely what is referenced in, religious texts and things like that throughout history. but I think that doesn't make it less spooky. I don't know. What do you think, Dan?
I agree. I dove into the whole subject of the jinn a couple of years back because I wanted to know about them, and jinn, if people don't know, that's where our word for genie comes from. And we kind of make this mystical figure out of them. But when you go to the Middle East and you look at the lore and you read the books and dive in, there's a really great podcast if someone wants to dive into it called The Hidden Jinn. And it's literally just about jinn and legends around them. So it's an excellent educational piece. But you get a real sense of basically jinn are people without bodies. There are many different kinds of them. They're not all evil. They're not all good. It depends which one you encounter. There are kind of, descriptions for groups that might lean a little bit malevolent or benevolent, but that's about it. They are just people without bodies. And I find that idea so tantalizing because nature doesn't stop evolving. So if it gets to us, it doesn't just go, oh, we're good. It says, no, what's the weak spot here? So if you extrapolate that idea to kind of get to a place of, okay, well, if you remove everything fragile from a human and you leave only the thing that is us inside, whatever you want to call that, soul, but whatever, then you end up getting rid of the fleshy, spongy, fragile body. And so is that ghosts? Is that... are these things responsible for it? And it's intriguing as well to think from that point of view about, well, if there are beings out there that don't have bodies and they're just energy, what is our modern world doing to them? If you think of like the radio signals, Wi-Fi, stuff like that, they probably would not want to live in cities because it would mess up, the energy and the quantization of the atoms that make them and stuff like that. So they'd be in caves in the middle of nowhere and, in really kind of remote places, like haunted houses and things like that. And so I find this idea really just tantalizing. And after going through the whole, learning about jinn, I'm now a bit more like, oh yeah, sure, okay. So like demons, angels, jinn, all of these things are just names for people without fleshy bodies.
This is the perfect conversation leading into Halloween, I gotta say.
It really is.
I'm loving how this is shaping up. Well, and when I hear him, like what he's referencing, it reminds me a lot of Diana Pasulka's work, right?
Yes.
And everything. And I love Diana Pasulka. Like I've read her books and I just think she's so whip smart and such an amazing voice to have in the community. But, she talks about this in American Cosmic, right? About, things being left behind and this idea of gifts as opposed to, crashes. And, Dylan has talked about that there's been archaeological digs. And so when he's referencing this idea of, we were given the idea to build the craft. We built the craft. We were given the idea, right? Well, was that a gift? Was that one of these? It's interesting because it's like there's all these little breadcrumbs. And if you, if you listen to the folks in the community and you read up on all the latest, literature and things that are happening in the academic communities and whatnot, you start to put these things together. And then when Dylan mentions these things, you go, oh, that's what Diana was talking about. And that's what I heard in Valet's work. And that's what I've heard over here. And it all starts to, like a puzzle, it starts to all fit together, right?
Yeah, it really does. It makes me think as well, when you were saying then about like how we take it. If anyone's got a cat, you'll know this experience. When a cat brings you a present and it's just like a dead animal, right? Like if Roz brought me a present and it was a dead animal, I would take it as a threat, right? Like it would be like, oh, did you put a horse head in my bed? That's a threat.
The Godfather.
Whereas the Godfather, right? Yeah, exactly. Whereas the cat brings you a dead animal and it's a gift. And it took us a while to learn that. So we've got to kind of shift to start thinking from the cat's point of view in all of this. I know there's the idea out there of UFOs as kind of a pointer on a laser and we're just like cats chasing them. Like, yeah, maybe. But then what does that imply about who's holding the laser, right? Like, is it fun? Is it instructional? Are they just playing with us, or is this something that they're trying to do? And yeah, when you kind of get to the place of, okay, there are these invisible people out there that can walk through doors and walk through walls and our security isn't security and they can read our minds and do what they want, like that gets really scary. And I can understand why any president wouldn't want to stand there and go, your locks don't work and we can't protect you. We're not alone.
It would be chaos. It would be absolute and complete chaos, aka catastrophic disclosure.
Catastrophic disclosure.
That's my guess. My guess is that's where we're heading.
The archaeology thing I thought was really interesting. A few weeks back, someone from Uncharted X, that's it, Ben from Uncharted X, he went on to Joe Rogan and he was talking about this maze that was found with an underground scan at Hawara. And when I say underground scan, I'm not talking about, the thing that was in the news recently where they found like these 800-foot supposed pillars under the Great Pyramid and stuff. Like, that technology is not proven. But Ben brought this up because he was saying, well, if you want to talk about underground scans that we can actually use to explore something new or find something new, let's do this one. This is known. So there is a place in Hawara that is a maze, and it's known by archaeologists. They know it's there. This isn't controversial to say. A group of British guys scanned it, and they found basically all the rooms and stuff beneath the sand. And in one of the rooms, there is an object which its material does not match the material of anything around it, sticks out like a sore thumb, and it almost looks like a little Tic Tac. And Ben described it as a Tic Tac on the show, and that's kind of why it got traction. Personally, I don't think it really looks like a Tic Tac as described by Dave Fravor and Alex Dietrich, etc. But it's kind of like this little kind of rounded nub. So I can see why someone would call it that, even though I don't think it matches the description perfectly. But this is a really shallow site that we could, if we got funding, we could go in, dig it up and find out what this mysterious object is. But that's what I thought of when he was talking about archaeological digs, as well as Lou Elizondo saying, hey, what would it mean if we went into King Tut's tomb and found a 747? The implications there are really big, right? So, this comes along with the archaeology stuff. And that the maze in Hawara is tantalizing. I'll send you a picture, Roz, to edit in because it is so hard to find in the actual scan. I'll send you the full scan and a zoomed in picture of the little nub. But this is real. If you're a millionaire and you happen to be listening to this, I'll come with you. Let's go do it.
Expedition time.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so Dylan says all that. Then he says about that his knowledge is so good that when he went to the ICIG, he was able to draw 3 pictures. One was unclassified, and the other 2 were immediately thrown into an SAP, and those 2 prove we are not alone. Jeremy nods, and he asks him to draw the triangle. So Dylan draws the triangle, right? And again, this exchange is very, to me, Dylan didn't mention that either any of the pictures he drew were the triangle. So I feel like this is Jeremy threading the needle and kind of going, okay, I'm not going to ask you to replicate the pictures you drew that were classified, but I am going to ask you to draw the triangle. Can you do that? That's using that weasel language against the Pentagon, because we can get around as long as we don't say these, the exact things that they don't want us to say. And in the interview, Dylan draws the triangle. It's an interesting drawing. It's as he described it. While he's doing that, he says what it means to be human. And I was like, take a drink, everyone, and he then starts drawing something else. And it cuts to Jeremy and George looking on. So he's drawing a second picture after he's just said that 2 of the 3 pictures were classified. So I don't know if Jeremy's going to share this picture or what. Hasn't so far. It's been a few weeks, but I really want to know what he drew at the end.
I feel like, again, that's George and Jeremy there. It was really interesting to watch that interview too, just from that journalistic perspective, the way that they chose to use the word redacted, and kind of similarly to teasing the photo at the end or the drawing at the end, but not showing it. It's like, they're essentially by not just cutting around that stuff, and removing it completely from the edit, they're telling the audience, we know a lot more. Like, he's telling us a lot more in confidence. It's almost like, it's like Bob Lazar again, the protection idea, right? It's almost like, what did they call that? A dead man's...
dead man switch, yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like that. It's almost like George and Jeremy signaling, to the community and the intelligence community at large, like, hey, we've got this and we've got the full story. And if anything happens to him, we have it. Do you know what I mean? It's like a bit of it's almost like they're doing a bit of that because me as an editor, I'm always looking at like, what's the meaning behind leaving that in? What's the meaning behind,
totally with you.
You know what I mean? As opposed to just cutting around, right? So yeah, I think you're right. Like they know a lot more than what they're sharing.
Yeah, and as you so rightly said then with the intelligence community, I think it's a shot across the bow of the secret keepers to go, look, this is happening. He said it was happening. He's given us everything. It's no longer in his control. We can press this button. And if he's given it to them, they're not the only people he's given it to. You know, he said that everyone in that kind of, you know, on the island of rejected toys, they all had dead man switches for each other, and they all shared their information to kind of say, look, if something happens to me, you get this out. So it's kind of reaching, you know, a fever pitch, this kind of approach, right? So as well as Dylan Borland, Weaponized released an interview with someone named Daniel Dockerall, who was a witness that was meant to testify at the hearing, ultimately decided not to because he kind of didn't want the attention. But he just shared his story. So I'm just going to run through that real fast. He went through the whole vetting process to testify at the hearing. So he's spoken to Congress, spoken to all these committees and so on and so forth, and been confirmed as legit in terms of his qualifications. He says that in 2006, he was in the last stage of Ranger School, had a bad jump, and he was housed up in a medical facility in Air Force Base. He woke up in the middle of the night to hear kind of this power cycling up and down outside the building. And so on crutches with a back frame, he like stumbles out and he sees this guy and he asks him, and they say, oh yeah, this is just nighttime activity here. So he goes outside the building to have a look. And he sees a bunch of Humvees kind of around a big, huge bank of lights that were kind of all centered on something in the middle. And he says what they were centered on was a giant 300 or so feet in length, about, you know, the size of a football field, was a giant aircraft with no visible cockpit or engine or fuselage. No sound. So he doesn't explain what the sound was prior that he was hearing. I guess it could have been a generator or something being set up. But it floats up perfectly straight. It's a triangle with 3 lights, you know, one on each edge and one big one in the center, and talks about it banking, which I found interesting because if it's, you know, just floating up and it's not undulating, you know, like a plane that's kind of hovering, that means that it's, you know, probably what we would call anti-gravity or something like that, because it's just, you know, fixed. But also saying when it banks, that means it's not flying with that anti-gravity stuff. It's banking like a normal plane, which there's a normal plane going over right now. I don't know if you can hear it. It's banking. That's a sound effect, actually, you know? It's banking like a normal plane, which suggests like different modes, which lines right up with something from Secret Machines where, you know, there would be an outside the atmosphere mode and an inside the atmosphere mode because of friction and things like that. And that it zipped off. And the phrase he used was that it was the most violently fast thing I've ever seen. He said that it zipped off and came back to rest above the trees like 2 or 3 times, but he kind of got bored of it. So he went inside. Someone apparently said to him, that's just the Aurora project, which for any, you know, sharp-eared UFO folk in the audience know that, you know, the Calvin project was said to be the Aurora project. Like Aurora is meant to be like the reverse engineered alien craft that was found. So real interesting seeing it pop up there because it's been denied that it exists a lot, or that they built it, or, you know, went beyond prototyping. And he says that it's not my wheelhouse, UFOs, he means. So he's not really thinking about anything but cool technology, i.e. this is military technology. So if you're hearing that he's watched it 2 or 3 times and left bored and thinking, what, that's crazy, that's why. He wasn't thinking about UFOs or aliens when he encountered this thing. So yeah, he saw this huge football field-sized triangle zip around. He wonders out loud why they're kind of keeping this secret. And it made me wonder, like, is it being used now for stealth missions around the world that we just don't hear about? Or is it more of a kind of, okay, if a country fires nuclear weapons at the US, their last line of defense is something that can move like this and just intercept a missile to ultimately stop it happening, but they don't want anyone to know that they have it, because then they're going to try and make the missile, UAP proof, essentially. But it was interesting. His testimony, Daniel's testimony, wasn't as emotionally charged as Dylan's. It was, still very matter of fact, but just clearly no repercussions or anything like that there for Daniel talking about this. I am not mad that he wasn't included in the hearing. We had enough of those kind of stories there to go. But I thought it was an interesting perspective. So I'm glad that they shared it. Did you see that one, Russ?
No, I didn't. No, I haven't caught up on that one yet.
It's short. It's literally in the most recent episode of Weaponized, and it's like a segment of it. Maybe 15, 20 minutes. But yeah, it's interesting, but they're the kind of interesting points from it.
I love that George and Jeremy are becoming this magnet for everybody, or have always been, I guess. But I love that there's just more and more coming out all the time, right? They're like, oh, and this person, It's awesome.
Absolutely. And there are so many comments in these interviews that make me look at someone like George. And I haven't made my mind up with Jeremy, but George for sure. When you're dealing with IC agents, people will scream at you like you're being manipulated. And I feel like George has this air about him that says, yes, I know, but what am I going to do about it? I've still got to keep reporting on this to try and get to the truth. It is what it is. And that's a really interesting place to be, I think, to kind of go, yeah, I know people are trying to influence me and pull the wool over my eyes and give me misinformation, but I'm trying to keep my head screwed on straight. Like it's a difficult task. And again, props to George. Like his head seems on pretty straight still after decades of doing this.
And he probably knows more than anybody about this subject and about the inner workings, between the government and private sector and who's involved, and scientists and studies. And I'm sure he knows more than everybody combined. So he's our oracle. George is the oracle.
I like that. Oracle George. Okay, it is time for Roz's book club. Take it away.
Oh my gosh, what to even say? I mean, I was excited last signal because I thought we were going to get into what I was reading at the time. I have kind of moved on a little bit since then, but my thought about book club is that, every time we have an episode with an interview, there's always books recommended by these people, right? And they're fantastic books, and we might put the link in the show notes, and we might, keep little details about them, but we don't ever get into reading them or sharing more. And so I thought, wouldn't it be fun to do a What It Means to Be Human book club? I don't even have a name for it yet. I want to call it the Paranormal Book Club, but that's not really right, because it might not always be paranormal,
I guess that's true, yeah.
Could just be something. So, I was thinking about Maya recently talking to us about her, it wasn't even a book club pick. We were just asking her about Indigenous people's take on the UFO subject. And she referred us to Ardy Sixkiller Clarke, who is this academic and author from the U.S. who's written multiple books on Indigenous people's encounters with what they call star people. And so she has a number of books out. One of them is called Encounters with Star People, Untold Stories of American Indians. And it's where she actually goes in and interviews people and gets real stories, from their knowledge, their oral histories, and probably more current as well, like more present day stories from people about things that they've seen. So there's a number of books. There's got Encounters with Star People. There's Sky People. I think she has 2 versions of Encounters with Star People. So I thought, why don't we make that the first book club pick? Encounters with Star People by Ardy Sixkiller Clarke.
I love that.
Yeah. And then we can all, it was just Indigenous Peoples Day. We can all learn a little bit more about other cultures and other ways that people see this. This was also recommended, Ardy Sixkiller Clarke was recommended by Richard Haddam in our Richard Haddam episode.
Yeah, that's right. Oh, yeah. So we definitely, perfect pick for the first book club. So how long do people have to read this before we dive into this?
I'm going to say like a month. I'm going to say 30 days. Yeah, 30 days. Dropping the gauntlet. Boom.
And then Roz is going to be at your door being like, have you read it?
That's right. I'm actually I'm actually in a terrestrial book club here in Prince Edward County, which is outside of Toronto. We have our book club meetups about once every 6 weeks.
And I love the name of this book club. Can you please share it?
It's called Read Between the Wines.
Read Between the Wines. I love it.
Because we live in wine country. So, and we're all ladies of a certain age. And so, it's a fun get together, but it reminds me like, oh, it's so much fun to get together to talk about great books. So I thought what we could do is maybe in the Patreon, we could do a discussion, after the book is complete, we could talk about it. Or, and we'll also obviously mention it on the episode of The Signal. That'll be like a month from now, I guess.
Sure.
Thoughts, revelations. So if anybody out there wants to join in the book club, I'm here. Roz's book club, What It Means to Be Human book club. That's the facts.
So just one more time, the title of the book and the author.
Title of the book is Encounters with Star People, Untold Stories of American Indians. And the author is Ardy Sixkiller Clarke.
Amazing. Okay.
Yeah.
So we're going to be coming back around on that. You got a month to read it, and then we'll get into everything that's contained therein. I also wanted to kind of take a moment. There were 2 books out this week that I think people should know about. We had Time Rider from To the Stars. That was kind of adapting the very real, nonfiction look at the kind of the esoteric world since the 40s, 50s by Peter Lavender, known as Sinister Forces, where he kind of brings a light to all these like almost weird synchronicities, like the fact that one of the people or the person that supposedly killed JFK was connected to this guy named Andrea Puharich. I always muddle that name up, who had super heavy dealings in the defense industry and stuff like that. And also hosted something that people will know as the 9, where he got 9 business kind of magnates from across America, including Arthur Bell, who made the Bell helicopter. You know that fame? These were all really heavy hitters with loads of connections. And they did a seance to talk to something in orbit that referred to itself as the 9. And it gave them directions and ideas about the world and what to do. And after that, some of those things came true.
Whoa, what?
And it gets crazy. It's really weird. I highly recommend it. But Time Rider kind of takes all of this and puts it into a fictional story. I'm doing the little quotes to kind of get this stuff across in an entertaining way about someone from 2167 who is sent back in time to maintain the time stream against time terrorism. And they are humans in the future, but society looks very different. You have alphas who are genetically engineered. You have betas who are kind of naturally born but frowned upon. And then they kind of work with the alphas, but then the ones that don't are referred to as gammas, and they're like out in the sticks kind of doing all the mining and things like that. And they have a design that they follow that seems to be guided by AI. And so they're coming back in time to kind of maintain that. So it's a really interesting story. And supposedly, some kind of wink, wink, nudge, nudge, this might not be made up type thing. Ooh. So that's interesting. Then we also have a book from James Lacatski, who ran ORSAP and was deeply involved with the DIA back, pre-2010. Everything you hear about Skinwalker now comes from this guy and the work that he did. He has written 3 books. One of them was Inside the U.S. Government Covert UFO Program, Initial Revelations. That was in 2023. He also wrote Skinwalkers at the Pentagon, an insider's account of the secret government UFO program. That was 2021. And now he's released the 3rd in the trilogy called Inside the U.S. Government Covert UFO Program, New Insights. And this kind of dives into a lot of the actual work they did in ORSAP and some of the files that leaked out recently. A little hat tip to Keith Basterfield here, who has, I'll put the link in the show notes for people to read, but he looked at some of these files that I gave him that kind of leaked out of To the Stars and really shouldn't have. And so this is kind of Lacatski's side of those files, what they mean, what they found. So it is one that I'll be queuing up and getting to soon.
That's exciting. I know. I just made it through I'm currently reading the second. So I'm reading Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. It's my long way of saying I'm currently reading the second in the trilogy because I already read the first one, which was, I can't remember the name of it now. The initial Skinwalker Ranch book.
Well, there's 4 books that are kind of, if I said to someone like, oh, you want to read everything about Skinwalker, Hunt for the Skinwalker was the first one.
That's the one I read.
But that's kind of disconnected from this stuff. It's written by, I think it was Knapp and someone else. And then after that, that's when Lacatski comes in, and it's very heavy, kind of, this is the official side of things, what we did.
Right. Okay. And that's what I'm reading right now. Hunt for the Skinwalker. Or not Hunt for the Skinwalker.
Interesting.
Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Yes.
Skinwalkers at the Pentagon. Yes. With the red cover. Yeah. Really interesting stuff. And kind of gets rid. I recommend people read these books because if you don't, you'll just hear someone like Stephen Greenstreet going, the US government spent money trying to study ghosts and werewolves, and it sounds ridiculous. But when you read these books and you actually know what they were doing and the work they were doing, it's not like, they saw something that resembled a werewolf that they couldn't explain. They're not just studying the werewolf. Like, why are they seeing this stuff? Why is it only there? Why is it in association with the UAP phenomena? That this is what they're looking at.
Yep, that's right.
Okay. So that is book club. We have one last audience question before we give you guys the final UFO or UFno. But this one's from Dom, and he says, love the show, guys. Thank you, Dom. Very kind of you. What are your thoughts on this 3 Atlas comet? Is it an alien spacecraft? This is a big one. I think we're going to have to come back around to this one in the next episode and look at it because stuff is still coming out. But just gut feeling right now.
Gut feeling right now is prosaic.
So I am with you. Okay. I am also leaning prosaic.
We agree.
There seem to be some, I know, right?
This could be the first time.
There seems to be some weirdness with it, but for me, the weirdness does not lean into it being something like Rendezvous with Rama. It doesn't seem to be this big ship. I've seen people post, the elongated light picture of this thing and say that it's a long cylinder, not understanding that that's a long exposure, and so it's a dot that's making the long line. But for me, I'm leaning prosaic and just some kind of comet that we don't really know about that doesn't outgas in the way that we think comets do at the moment. This is the 3rd interstellar object that we've detected after Oumuamua. There was another one that I've forgotten the name of, and now there's this one, Atlas. And I think the revelation here isn't that it's an alien spacecraft. I think the revelation is that stuff from outside the solar system comes into our solar system so much more than we thought it did. And that we've missed, hundreds of thousands of these things that could be super valuable for science and could be an alien probe. But we haven't been looking. So this is all kind of putting together a case of, look, put the tools in the sky and actually look at these things, and we might actually find something incredible.
Could also be dangerous, right? I mean, shouldn't we be aware of these things just like hurtling through space? Couldn't this be like a dinosaur killing asteroid-like object? I mean, I want to know.
It could be. And there are so many that we can't see, right? Because they don't reflect sunlight. That's the only way that we see comets. Like, we're very clever, but at the same time, there's no light on it, therefore we can't see it. It kind of makes me feel like we're a little bit dumb. But I saw that there were 2 comets within the last month that came within about 200 kilometers of hitting the planet. And they were really small comets, but we did not see them until they passed us. It was only after they went, the scientists were like, oh God, what was that? Oh, okay, it wasn't that big. But what happens when it is?
It's terrifying.
Yeah, real scary, right? Hug your loved ones. Quick, Roz. Turn it. Give us something to laugh at. UFO or UFno?
Spooky season. Here we go. Here we go. All right, UFO or UFno? I'm very excited. I'm going to pull this back up. So Dan, you out of the gate said UFO was your thought on this. Let me see here. Okay.
Before you play it, I am going to say, this has been ticking away in the back of my head, and now I'm wondering, oh wait, I didn't think about a paraglider.
Oh, Gosh,
So
a paraglider.
maybe, I don't know. Let's see. Let's see what this goes.
Okay, I sound too surprised by that, so now you know it's not that. Okay, here we go. All right, so here we go. UAP sighting, I'll play it one more time. I'm turning the audio down. Okay, and can you see that, Dan? Is it?
Yes.
Okay, it's rolling. All right.
It better not be like just a bag floating in the air. If this is just like a bin liner floating through the air.
Speaking of something flying through the air that we don't know what it is, from the Atlas conversation. Okay, so I don't know what to say about this. I looked on Reddit. I looked on the internet. I looked to see what the consensus was on this. The guy who shot it apparently commented on Reddit and said he believes that it is a flying sheet of mylar.
Okay.
But it is inconclusive. Dan, it's
okay.
inconclusive.
So this is our first UFO then,
it is
right?
a legit UFO. Yes. Was that anticlimactic? I feel like that was anticlimactic.
This was great. Only anticlimactic in the sense of, when you get to the end of UFO movies and they can't tell you what it actually is, and you're just like, oh, okay, credits roll, whatever.
That's right.
The real UFOs were inside us the whole way.
A lot of people had different thoughts. One person thought said, oh, it's a helicopter, which I don't believe it's a helicopter.
It's not moving like a helicopter.
One person, of course, said it's a balloon. One person, of course, like the guy who actually filmed it said when he slowed it down and zoomed in on it, he thought it was a flying sheet of mylar. But to me, like when I look at it, it doesn't look like mylar to me. The trajectory is like too odd. I feel like it was like a flying sheet of mylar. It would just kind of drift upwards or something.
Yeah. It feels like there's weight to it as well.
Yeah.
Like the mylar wouldn't necessarily like move like this.
No.
Like I say, it feels like it doesn't feel like it's something light in an airstream just being thrown around, like folding all over itself and so on and so forth. So yeah. That first UFO. Nice.
We're both stumped. I love it.
And kudos to the person that filmed it as well. Like, not immediately just saying, oh, it's definitely aliens. Like, actually trying to figure it out. Like we want to be able to figure these things out. If they're not anything anomalous, then we can take them off the table and focus better on the things that we think are anomalous. So...
Totally. And I mean, like this is right next to Lake Ontario, right? Which like here in Canada, like Lake Ontario is quite known for, its strange sightings and strange things that people see over Lake Ontario because it's one of the Great Lakes. So it's a huge body of water, right? So, I mean...
And they're enormous. Just for anyone listening, like Roz says, Great Lakes and stuff. Yeah. And yes, sure. We have big lakes in the UK and in Europe and stuff like that, but not like this. These are insane. You can't see the other side. It's basically, for all intents and purposes, an ocean
100%.
That is just in the middle of land.
100%. Looks like the ocean, for sure. And so for me, I mean, I know people see things a lot around that area, Lake Ontario. So, this was the first one, though, that I saw online and went, whoa, that's strange. So we'll put it up on the YouTube channel so people can watch it. Obviously, it's going to be part of this. But, can maybe separate it out too so people can see it. It is very anomalous. I will say that.
Yeah, it is. How far is... Wait, which lake did you say it was?
Lake Ontario.
So I'm just looking now. Lake Huron is not that far from it. And that is where the US shot one of the objects down. Back when the whole Chinese balloon thing, it was Lake Huron. And it was the Lake Huron one that we had a report from a pilot. It was never confirmed. We never heard the pilot say it. It was just he said, she said. A pilot said, apparently, that when they fired at this object over Lake Huron, that it dodged the object, that it dodged the missile. And so this is the same area, ish. Like I say, they're like oceans, but it's near enough. It's in this area.
I actually did see something over Lake Ontario. Maybe I'll save that for a different time. Save it another time. I do have a photo.
That's
also.
The tease.
Yeah, that's
you have a photo.
Yes,
oh my
I
God.
do. Yes, I do.
Okay. Yeah, we've got to get you on a contact episode to share your story, Roz.
Yes, totally.
Okay, well, I think that's everything for today.
It's a wrap.
Thank you so much for joining me again, Roz. You rocked it.
Thanks for having me.
And thank you to anyone listening. If you enjoyed the episode, please leave a review on Spotify or on your chosen platform. If you could like, share, or subscribe, that would be very much appreciated because it helps us find our tribe. And if you'd like to support the show and get access to a 1-hour live chat each month and early ad-free access, you can find us on Patreon. Just follow the link in the show notes or at our website, tobehumanshow.com. Feel free to reach out via the contact page or email at hello@tobehumanshow.com. You can also find us on Blue Sky, Threads, Instagram, or X at tobehumanshow.com. A lot of website addresses there. As always, remember to be curious because the universe is bigger than we know.
What It Means to Be Human is a double-barrel production. This week's episode was produced by Roz Mugford and Dan Zetterstrom. Sound post-production by Parker Mosley with technical support from Dale Mugford. Our theme music is by Thunderbird.